Hello, chemistry students. I'm going to run you through the procedure for the salt from Soda Lab. First step, safety first. Let's get our safety goggles on. All right, the equipment that you need. Find a 150 milliliter beaker, okay? Inspect it, make sure there are no cracks, okay? Otherwise, you might have a little accident during the heating. You'll also need a ring stand, okay, with a ring. Instead of a ring stand, if you want to, instead you can use a tripod. You'll also need your wire gauze. I'm going to put that on top of the tripod. Okay, and get those things prepared. Now, your first step is to get a sample. So in this lab, you could be given sodium bicarbonate or sodium carbonate. They look like this, but you're not going to be told which sample you have. They're going to be labeled 1 and 2. I'm going to take 2, and the first step is to weigh out about 1 gram of your sample into the beaker. But first, okay, we want to weigh our beaker. Okay, record that mass in part A of your data table. Then take your sample here. Make sure you have a clean scupula, and you're going to add about 1 gram of the sample into your beaker. So right now my mass, okay, I don't know if you guys can see it, it says 64.65 grams. So if I'm going to add about 1 gram, I need to add enough sample so that it's about 65.64. So I'll slowly start adding some. Okay, I'm at 65.20. Add a little bit more. Okay, 65.35. Okay, and I'm at 65.44. That's about 1 gram. Remember to always put your caps back onto your chemicals right away. Okay, and then you're going to record this mass in part B of your data table. That's your sample. Okay, so now once you have your sample and in your beaker and you've recorded the masses of the empty beaker and the beaker with the sample, you are now going to bring this up to me or Miss Roebuck or whoever your teacher is, and they will add the 3 molar HCl to the sample. When they're doing this, make sure you observe. Okay, first of all, you should write down observations of what this looks like and what the bicarbonate looks like. Okay, and I'm going to add this to the sample and observe and write down what happens when your teacher adds the acid to the beaker. We'll be adding enough so that all of the sample reacts according to the reactions that you wrote down in your pre-lab. We want to make sure that we react all of the sample so that we convert all of the sample into salt. Okay, so according to the balanced reactions, we should be getting salt, carbon dioxide, right? You can see bubbles coming off. That's carbon dioxide bubbles. And the other product is water. Okay, and then I'll add a little bit of excess just to, okay, I'm not seeing any more bubbling, so I've reacted all of my sample. Okay, so now that we've converted our sample into salt, water, and CO2, it's time to boil off the water. The gas has escaped. Now we want to boil off the liquid so that all that's left in this beaker is salt. The way we're going to do this is to use either a tripod or a ring stand. I'm going to use a tripod. And we're going to place our beaker up here on top of wire gauze. Make sure you put wire gauze down. Okay, and then we'll light our Bunsen burner, and let's move our chemicals out of the way. We will heat this until all of the liquid disappears. Now, when you're heating this, you want to make sure that you're heating it gently so that you don't have liquid or salt popping out of your beaker. All right, so okay, so now we're going to light the Bunsen burner and start heating the beaker and getting rid of the liquid so that all we'll have left in the beaker is salt. Remember, light the match first, then turn on the gas, bring the match to the side. Okay, adjust your burner. Then we'll start heating the beaker and getting rid of the liquid in the burner. You should see the liquid starting to heat up. You'll see steam rising. When you remove the beaker, you're going to use beaker tongs. So I can see some boiling starting to happen pretty fast. So I'm going to remove my burner for a while if it starts boiling too vigorously. You don't want it to boil too quickly because when that happens, you might have salt or liquid escape. Okay, so I can hold my burner by the metal ring here. And if you see it boiling too vigorously, just take it away, slow it down. Okay, then bring it back, heat it some more. Coming up, that's water vapor, and you can see that the water is condensing on the side as well. So you'll continue this until the beaker is completely dry. Let's fast forward now. Okay, so it's looking pretty dry now. So I'm going to turn off my burner and I'm going to let this cool. So I need to make sure that the beaker is completely cool before weighing it. So once it's cool, we'll put it on the balance again and record our mass. And since we know the mass of the empty beaker, and that's the beaker and the salt, by subtracting off the mass of the empty beaker, we'll have the mass of the salt. But first, we definitely want this to cool down. So I'm going to take this down carefully with my beaker tongs, and I'm going to set it on the lab bench to cool. Okay, and you can see right now this is what the salt looks like. Okay, I'm going to set that down there. And we have to make sure it's completely cool before we can weigh it. Otherwise, the mass could still be changing. And so I can feel a lot of heat coming off there. Okay, so the beaker is now cool to the touch. Okay, so I can take it over and weigh it. And then I can record this mass in C. So I'll go and record my mass. Okay, make sure this is zeroed. Okay, I'll put the beaker there. And then I'll record that mass in my data table. And then I'm going to heat this one more time for 5 minutes. And then I'll let it cool again. and I will take the mass a second time. Okay, so my beaker has cooled down after the second heating, so I'm gonna place it on the balance again and take my mass after the second heating. And then I'm going to write down this number in my data table. And then it's time for cleanup. So to clean up, just wash this out in the sink and then take a wet paper towel, okay, and wipe up the lab bench of any salt or any liquid that might have gone on your lab bench. And you're all set. Okay, so clean this out, okay, and put this away in your lab drawer. Okay, I hope that was helpful, and let's be safe in the lab and make some salt.